I could not get Your Player 2. Somebody already had Your Player 2, and I don't think they're even on Twitter anymore, which is, a little frustrating. But
Yeah.
they have the name first. Who am I to get upset about it? But yes, thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah,
It's gonna be good to hang out.
it's a pleasure. So tell everybody, just to start things off, the little easy stuff. The stuff is who you are and what your channel is all about.
Yes, my name is Joshua. I run a YouTube channel called Your Player 2, so named because I try to put myself in like a support role for other gaming content creators, and my channel is a pretty even split between gaming content and then also stuff about either YouTube, tactics and strategy, and then also, beyond that, also, stuff like video game live streams occasionally, which is something I'm slowly ramping back up to. But yeah, that's essentially what my channel is. It's a place where I can talk about gaming, but then also try to put something out there that is helpful for other people. That's generally, what I try to do over on YouTube.
Yeah,
Here,
yeah.
I guess I should say.
Yeah, I see that. I love what you do on your channel, from your review stuff like you did today. You did the M1 for the Apple computers.
Yes,
and all that.
Yes.
I watched that right before I left work, and I liked that video. It's really cool, to see that, because I didn't, I've seen you do reviews of stuff and all that, but I never thought, hey, he's an Apple guy. Now he's actually showing an Apple product, reviewing it, so that's cool.
Yeah, and I did. It's so funny. Like, I used to be super anti-Apple. Like, when I was in college, I made friends with who became like my best friend. I was the best man at his wedding. My buddy Jason, who's a graphic designer, he was huge into Apple products, and I was like, you can't play games on Apple products. I was real down on Apple, and then eventually what happened was I bought an off-the-shelf HP machine, and it kind of failed on me with a general hardware fault. And I work in IT, so I kind of figured, if there's a problem, I should be able to. There should be a reasonable chance I can fix it, given what I do for a living. Couldn't fix it. Ended up returning it and getting another one. And I joked with my girlfriend at the time. I was like, if this one fails, I'm gonna get a Mac. And that one failed too. So I went back and kind of ate my words. I was like, all right, let me try out this iMac, and I fell in love with it. And I never really went back from Apple after I started in 2010, 2011, I think.
Wow, yeah, because I see you dabble in some other stuff, but a lot of time, like when you're talking about your editing and like your workflow and your videos and all that, I see that Apple that you got in, I think 2015 that you talk about and all that. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and that was really what drove me to. Well, I mean, I was thinking about getting another laptop anyways, and the M1s had just come out, and they are. Like, you can believe the hype on this. Believe me, like, it was so good. Not only did I get the M1 MacBook that I reviewed on that video today, but I actually was like, this is just such a tremendous experience. I actually went back and got the Mac Mini as well, so I'll be doing a video about that on the channel.
Nice.
Because it's Apple designing their own silicon now, and you kind of saw this in I want to say it was like the early 2000s when Apple announced, like, okay, we're going to switch away from using PowerPC processors, and we're going to start using Intel processors, which a lot of people were excited about. Intel was more widely adopted, and that made it so you could run Windows on a Mac, which seems like heresy to some, but some people, they dig that kind of thing. So it feels like we're kind of going through another moment like that, and yeah, I mean, it was nuts to me that this little low end, because the base model Mac Mini is like $699, which is not terribly expensive compared to some other desktops. And it was weird because it would run absolute circles around the iMac that I've been using. So after seeing it on the MacBook, I was like, yeah, I need to use this as like my primary editing platform right now until they, do like an iMac and M1 or something like that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I just wanted to let you know I enjoyed that video a lot today, and I love it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So getting into things to let people kind of know more about you, because I've always wondered things here and there about how you got started into YouTube, what drove you to do this and all that. When I first met you, it was Geeks Podcast. When I first met you, that was the name of the channel. Yep. What was Geeks Podcast for? Because I know you don't really talk about it much on your channel anymore, but what was Geeks Podcast, and what made you want to make the move to do It's Your Player 2?
So really what Geeks Podcast was originally, it was a name that I came up with in 2009 or 10. And at the time, it was just I just thought it was a cool name, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! I should get this name, and then I'll make content because I love geeky stuff." And that's still true today. But the problem was with Geeks Podcast, so it never really got a lot of traction because much like I have the attention span of a goldfish, right? Like, I have to spend a lot of time to make sure I can stay focused on something.
Yeah,
it's something I understand. And for Geeks Podcast, it didn't help things. It actually hurt me, I think, as a creator. It was a fun little playground to kind of get used to making stuff. But the problem was, I would put out video game content maybe for 3 weeks straight, and then someone would be like, oh, okay, I like this, and they would subscribe. But then I might talk about comics for like 6 weeks. So it was a very, and it's weird because you can even make the argument that I'm kind of replicating that problem with your player too, because I'm not purely a gaming channel. I'm not purely a YouTube help channel. I am kind of both. I'm hoping that I can sustain that. If not, there is a temptation to kind of split the channel off into two different channels. But I kind of don't want to do that just because I think authenticity is probably one of the most important things that a creator can have. I mean, you've got that in space. Like, that's one of my favorite things about you. Just to turn back on you for a second. Dude, like, you are one of the just chillest, most humble, kindest people I met on the platform, and I'm really glad that I got to meet you as early as I did, because that was really encouraging for me as a creator to meet somebody else who had similar ideals. But yeah, so Geeks Podcast was that, and at a certain point I realized this is not working, and I realized I really wanted to focus on something. And I knew that despite all the things that I love in my life from a pop culture sort of perspective, like like comics or the MCU, video games, movies, all that different stuff, I really, like, if you were like gun to my head, I could only pick one of them, it would be video games every time. It's just like this constant in my life where I started playing when I was about 4 or 5 years old, never really stopped. And at a certain point, I remember thinking, you're probably going to grow out of gaming at some point. Just sort of assuming that as time went on, I might be like, it's time to stop playing video games. But my dad just turned 60, and the dude is like 300 hours into Valhalla, and I realized my dad's in his 60s. There's no hope for me. Like, I'll be playing video games forever.
Wow.
Jakin, hello.
Hello, Jakin.
So yeah. That was the reason for the pivot. Was at the time it was something that, I mean, it was a lot of fun to work on, and like I learned a lot about video production throughout that sort of Geeks podcast era.
Yeah.
But push come to shove, I kind of made this decision where I was like, I have to kind of focus in on something if I want to figure out a way to get traction.
Yeah.
And honestly, it would probably be more fun for me to focus purely on one thing that I really love, which was gaming.
Yeah.
And the Your Player 2 part of it was I didn't want to just make gaming stuff. I wanted to do stuff that I want to put something positive out there, right? Because you don't have to look very far on the internet or really anywhere to find something negative. And I think, if somebody finds that, it can sort of paint their worldview really quickly, and that's how you get people who are
understandable
and very cynical. And I just, I wanted to put something good out there. I wanted to encourage creators. I wanted to provide information I could, and I was always kind of split on that because I'm not an expert. Like, it's weird, right? Because I don't have like a million subscribers or anything. So if I'm like, oh, you should try this, I can't really speak to it from a position of authority. Like, oh yes, this is how I built an empire of 200,000 subscribers. All I can do is share the stuff that I've learned along the way that kind of has worked for me, and hope that it helps other people. Because there's not, and I've said this in videos before, there's not like a silver bullet solution. Like, everyone wants to get ahead on YouTube, and they're like, ooh, what's that one thing that's going to catapult me into superstardom or whatever it is. But there isn't just one answer. Right, everyone's different. Like Jakin's content in the chat, Discard, hello, your content is very different than the stuff that I would put out. And in turn, it's like you kind of figure out the people that you connect with the most, and hopefully there's some intersection with the things that you're passionate about. And when you can reliably make content and serve an audience and make sure that you're having fun too, and it's not just like this job, like, oh, I gotta make another video today. Like, if that's your mentality, like, something's broken. Like, you need to fix something, in my opinion.
Yeah. Hello, everybody in the chat. Hello, Jakin, Discard, Dank. Everybody is here, even the couple of lurkers that may be around. I just want to let y'all know, if y'all want to ask a question and I see the question down there in the chat, I will ask it to him if you want to ask me one. And this is what the podcast is about when I do the more interview style episodes. But yeah, good explanation of your channel and all that. I like it that you kind of knew that you were too broad, had a bunch of big pool of things. Yeah. And then you're kind of like, I need to kind of niche it down. I'll still periodically show these things, but I need to niche it down to several just small, things.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's almost like the pendulum swinging the other way now from like a content strategy perspective. Like, one of my favorite people who I think every YouTuber or anybody with any entrepreneurial aspiration should be checking out is Gary Vaynerchuk, known as Gary V online.
Yeah, I know.
Highly recommend it. But he there are people who niche down really hard, and I would say that I've focused better. I would not say I'm 100% focused on gaming, obviously, but one of the things that he's pointed out is that, one of the things about getting outside of your niche once in a while, like talk about like, oh yeah, I really love tacos, or I love Yeezy sneakers, or whatever it is that you're excited about, is also something that humanizes you, right? Because you can end up looking like a robot. Like, if all you ever talked about was wrestling 24/7, but you never once mentioned like, oh yeah, I like video games too. I mean, yes, for hardcore wrestling fans, you're going to serve them, but I think that, people like whenever you can be a little bit off the cuff, or just be yourself. That's something that's a constant struggle for me.
Discord said in chat, hey, you guys should consider or look into doing shorts. They feel very risky, but are also possibly rewarding from what I've seen. Yeah, shorts. You ever thought about doing those? Because that's something new that I started to see come out there.
Yes, I literally have a to-do list item in the queue Discard, which was just to brainstorm Saturday shorts because I was going to put them out on Saturdays and just make them off the cuff, kind of fun little content. Like, maybe I would rapid fire and be like, "Ooh, here's 10 of my favorite old school brawlers" or something like that. Yes, and I think those are a lot of fun. Like I've seen Russ Lyman do some good ones.
Yeah.
Um, and then also, I gotta tell you, I've warmed up to TikTok considerably. Like, I put out a few videos over there, but I'm gonna be doing the same thing for TikTok and kind of ramping up my presence there because organic reach on TikTok is insane. Not Another Game Collector had put out a video there where she was talking about it was just like a quick clip of like a Popeye cartoon or something. She got like 13,000 views, and she had no following. Like the
Wow.
organic reach on TikTok is absurd.
Yeah, I mean, I've started because several creators told me like just use TikTok. It's just tell people, hey, you're going live. It's another platform, another eye that knows that you're going live on YouTube, or just do something. So I've started to just do a few silly videos on there. A few, hey, I'm live over here on YouTube, little things, and I've got like 100, 200 people watching it, and I'm like, I didn't even share it out to anybody. I just put it there, see what would happen, and I'm like it's getting there.
And it makes sense, right? Like it makes sense to me that you would get a higher viewership, or at least maybe higher than average, if they put out a new format like that, like maybe like Instagram Stories, or in this case YouTube Shorts, because obviously they're testing the market to see how people respond to it, right? And it can't be lost on any of these major companies that you've got TikTok, which is a small video format, right? I think you have like a minute of recording time, maybe.
Yeah, a minute.
I can't remember.
Up to a minute.
Right, and that does extremely well. And if you really give TikTok an honest shot, like if you've been kind of lukewarm on TikTok, like that's not for me, like that's for other people. If you check it out, it is remarkably good at algorithmically figuring out the things that you love and serving it up to you constantly. So it's like with only a minute and the ability to rapid scrub through a ton of different videos, like it's really kind of incredible. So I can see why Google would be interested in pursuing a similar format for YouTube. So it's not surprising to me to hear that those videos are good.
Yeah, well, I've always heard the saying that like when you create YouTube content, you have to engage people in the first few seconds, right? And all these sites, right. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all these sites are finding ways to sit there and get that short form content and put it out to people to maybe bring them over to the longer form content. And I'm still getting used to trying to use that stuff, but it's something that some people are using very, very well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the thing, like one of the things that I'll say is if you've noticed, I've shifted the language a little bit in my videos over time. I used to say like help other YouTubers, which is still my primary focus, but more so I say content creators. And the reason I say that is because, platforms, they live and die every day, right? Like platforms rise and fall. Like what was it? MySpace supplanted Friendster, then MySpace was supplanted by Facebook, and then Facebook. Well, I guess Twitter didn't really supplant Facebook. Facebook's still pretty big, but
yeah, I mean,
is YouTube still going to be the main place you want to be making content in a decade?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, you got TikTok now, but previous to TikTok, we had Vine that was similar, So it's like
yes, yeah.
So yeah.
Like a precursor.
Yeah, because that's what I think was when I was on TikTok. Sometimes I just remember being back on Vine, looking at little clips of things, and it's a similar kind of format. They've added a few obviously more modern things to it, but it's really, really similar.
Right.
I
agree.
Yeah, so getting back into you and your channel, whenever you niched it down, because you talked about that a moment ago. Whenever you niched it down and all of that, what made you want to niche it down to hey, I'm doing Geeks Podcast now. I'm doing Your Player too, and I want to niche it down to video games and helping other creators. Where'd that come from?
Well, I mean, part of it is I knew it was something I could reliably do. Right, because there were periods of my life where there would be like an ebb and a flow to my interest, right? Because usually if I get excited about a new thing, there had always historically been I would get really into it and hit it really hard for anywhere from like 4 to 8 weeks, and then I would abandon it just as quickly. So I knew it was something that I was going to have to reliably be interested in if I was going to keep making content about it. Like one example I'll give you is like probably 2013, I was really into Magic the Gathering, like hardcore. Like, we'd go to Friday Night Magic. I would go to like anytime they would drop new blocks, I would go to the launch or the release parties for those. Like I was real into it. And then one day I just woke up and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. So I knew I couldn't have a situation where I was like, I couldn't build a brand or a channel around something like Magic if I knew I was going to, there was a good chance that based on my own past behavior that I would just abandon it. But gaming was something that I knew would never really go away. And the other part of it in terms of like why I wanted to help people out one, I think that's just a good thing to do, right? But two is I have a lot of empathy for. There is like a stereotypical loner sort of archetype, right? And usually a lot of those people can be really into things like high fantasy or science fiction or
Yeah.
video games. And it breaks my heart to think that some people I've met are some of the most brilliant people I've met in my life, and they're terrified to speak or to put themselves out there. And I mean, I still struggle with that, right? Like when you and I were talking before the show started, I mentioned like my anxiety, like the imposter syndrome flavor of it, is something that makes it hard for me sometimes. Like if I step away from streaming a little bit, it can be hard for me to get back in because I will have all sorts of like negative, intrusive thoughts, like oh, you weren't that good at streaming to begin with, or nobody's going to want to watch your stuff, or you need to fix this, and it's a bunch of nonsense. And I know it's not, like, logically I can speak about it now, but when you're in the moment, that's a hard thing to deal with. But if something that I put out is like that linchpin for somebody, where if they're trying to get over that hump of like self-confidence, or if there's just like one tiny thing they can't quite figure out how to do and they want to be able to do it, and I can provide that, I love that. Like that's more important to me than like the numbers. But like obviously I've spoken before, like I definitely want to do this full time someday, and that's everyone's journey is going to be happen at a different rate. Like you might have a viral video that blows up, and then you know how to manage that sort of success effectively and leverage it into something where you could go full time and make that kind of revenue. Or it could be a long, slow, arduous grind, or it might be somewhere in the middle. For me, I think it's somewhere probably in the middle. But I've never been shy about the fact that, like, yes, I don't think there's anything wrong with creators making money on the platform either, right? I think where it gets dangerous is the ethicality involved in how you make that money, right? If you're making a bunch of type videos, if you're misleading people, if you're trying to get money from people and you're not delivering on the promises that you made, like with a Kickstarter or something like that, like that's a bad spot to be in. But fundamentally, like I don't feel bad when I get AdSense checks,
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, because I mean, anybody's a creator. If you do this long enough and you really enjoy it, you would like to see some kind of, I guess, profit or benefits or something positive come from it,
Right, and for me, it's not even about the money. I'm not like, ooh, I want to get that Lambo money. It's not that.
Yeah, I understand.
That, like money is not fundamentally evil. It's like how you use it might be evil, but I mean, for me, the goal is time more than money, right? The reason I want to go full time is like I have a day job. Obviously, I have to be a responsible adult and pay bills and things like that. But it's making money on a platform like this gradually. Like if it starts as a side hustle and eventually evolves into something full time, I think that's a wonderful thing. And it also frees up the time to make more videos that could be more helpful. Like I have some really big goals for the channel this year. Sorry, not to like get off topic here, but
that's fine. Go ahead.
I mean, I guess it's shameless self-promotion, but it has a point. So one of the things that I'm going to do this year is I want to start some series where I would do like basically 4 to 6 videos in a row over a period of a few weeks, where I would cover something that's very specific, like do you need a website for your channel? If so, here are some of the steps you can go through to do that. Something that was really big on like technical detail and information that kind of broke it down in a very easy to follow way for people. But I would love to make stuff like that all the time, but it's like there's only so many hours in a day, so that's my personal motivation.
Okay, let me see. Discord says Patreon made me feel terrible when I saw those people not watching the content. I'd much rather have a Patreon when my channel's bigger at this point. Yeah, man, I have a Patreon and everything like that. I don't really promote it or anything like that, and it helps the channel out and all that. But it does kind of get disheartening sometimes whenever you do put stuff out there and you put it on these things and you don't see people watch it and all that. But I always try to stay positive and just keep on ticking.
It's not much of a struggle for you, Chris. You're one of the most hyper positive people I've met.
So. Well, thank you. Thank you. I just try to put that out there with everything that I do. When I'm on somebody else's channel, I'm in a Discord playing a video game. I try to put a positive move out there because there's gonna be some negative things in life. You can't avoid that, but you try to sit there and look through the negativity to find that positive light that you can take out of it.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah. So, kind of taking a 180 from this to earlier, you talked about your dad, and I've always heard you talk about it in all that, him playing video games and all that. I got my dad, and we play music together, but we don't sit down and play video games. Me and my mom don't sit down and play video games, but I always hear you talk about playing games with your parents and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
How is that for you to be able to grow up playing games like that, and now you have a YouTube channel and you're still being able to share that experience with them and all of that? And how does it make the connection with y'all stronger or what? Let people know, because I'd like to know how that is, because I don't have that experience.
Yeah. Well, first off, it's awesome that you can. First off, that you can play music, right? I'll tell you this. I played piano when I was until I was about 11 or 12 years old. I played a fair amount of piano, and I didn't play it the correct way according to my teachers, right? Like I would play to finish the song and do so as well as
Yeah.
possible. But they were like, you didn't really learn how to read the music. You didn't learn the feeling of it. I was like, I don't care about that. I just want to play the song. And that apparently is not the way you're supposed to approach musicianship. So I was a horrible musician. But it's cool that you have that connection with your dad, right? And I just sort of lucked out. So the way I feel about it now is uh, historically, like my earliest memories of gaming were with my parents, right? Like
Yeah.
my first I have a video coming out. Wait, it's already out about the analog mini, right? Because I got that system like months ago. I finally started playing around with it. I'm
Yeah.
pumped to make a video about it. So the NES was my first system, but that's not the earliest gaming memory I have. The earliest gaming memory I have is being like 3 or 4 years old, and then like sitting on my dad's lap while he played Top Gun on a Commodore 64. He used to play a
Wow.
game called Paradroid, and like as I was growing up, my dad was really into PC gaming more so than console. My mom's a little more into console because I'll never forget. I had this. It's one of my favorite stories. Like when I was about 5 or 6 years old, we were walking out of Hills department store, right? Which
Yeah.
Hills isn't around anymore. But we were walking out and they had one of those little sales papers like in the entryway, and it was a coupon for $5 off Tetris. And my mom was like, "Do you want this game?" I was like, and I was asking all kinds of questions, like, "What kind of game is?" I didn't know what Tetris was. She was like, "Well, it's like a puzzle game." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Does this mean we get the game for $5?" She's like, "No, it's $5." She got really like visibly frustrated that I was like bucking her on a new. She was like, "Do you want a new game or not?" I was like, "Yes, I totally want a new game." She gets the game. We go home, and my mom basically just kind of shoves me aside and immediately starts playing Tetris all day. And I remember my dad like comes home from work, and he's like, he sees her playing the game. He knows it wasn't a game I had because I'd only been playing like Mario Brothers, I think, up to that point.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, so you got a new game?" And my mom was like, "Oh, he begged me for it. He threw this huge fit in the middle of Hills, was just like screaming at me to buy him this video game." And I totally didn't do that. And I busted her out for lying about it. My dad thought it was the funniest thing ever. But yeah, so that was kind of like early playing games. And then from the PC perspective, I spent a lot of time playing games, not on Windows, but in DOS. There was the original Star Control. I remember my dad wrote on a post-it note the commands to run Star Control, starcon.exe.
Wow.
I think file names couldn't be more than 8 characters back then, I think. And then he was really into SimCity, the original SimCity. He was really into Diablo, and then moving a little bit further. Well, Mom was already always into Sierra games, right? Point and click adventures. So we used to play the Colonel's Bequest with Laura Bow. We used to play the Dagger of Amon-Ra, which was its follow-up sequel. I think she was into like King's Quest, maybe. I can't remember now. But moving forward, my dad would actually play Diablo 2, and this was like the mid 90s, with my grandpa, his dad. They would get
Wow.
online and play Diablo 2 together.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were real into it. And then sadly, my grandpa passed away, it was right around 2005, I think. And I had not had any interest in World of Warcraft. However, my dad, shortly after my grandpa passed away, he was like, "Hey, do you want to try World of Warcraft with me?" And I'm like, "Wow, dude, how do I say no to that after he's been playing with grandpa for years?" Like, "Of course I'll try World of Warcraft with you." And then we got real into that, and we played that for like 6 years straight. I think it was like around Miss of Pandaria that I kind of dropped off the WoW train. But yeah, like in today, in the modern age, Dad is about 200 or 300 hours into Valhalla at this point. He's a maniac, but he's retired. He's got nothing to do. He's a lazy bum. So of course he's going to play video games. Oh, sorry, Dad, if you're wondering. And then Mom's super into Animal Crossing. She has clocked over 200 hours in Animal Crossing, and I kid you not, I've gone to visit them at least like 2 or 3 times the past few weeks. She's worn a different Animal Crossing shirt every time I've seen her. I didn't get her those. I don't know if Dad did. So I don't know if she's just obsessive about the game. So yeah, it's a very cool thing to have parents who are into gaming. When I moved up to Columbus to go to college, my dad had an Xbox. I bought an Xbox, and we used to play Crimson Skies on Xbox Live. That was one of my earliest Xbox Live
That's an amazing game.
Yeah. So cool, very cool having, and more so because my parents are very encouraging people. Like they're very like, because it would be very easy to have parents who were just like, "Oh, you're playing video games in your 30s and you play around on the internet on YouTube." But my parents aren't like that at all. My dad has a multimedia background. He was a DJ in the 70s.
Wow.
And then he did multimedia production, shooting commercials and stuff like that. So he would do like directing, editing, stuff like that. And it was so funny because I'll never forget, he tried to teach me editing stuff early on, and I was like, "I don't need that nonsense. I'm going to do computer stuff." Then I realized I didn't love computer stuff, and I love doing multimedia production. I was like, I should have listened to my dad more.
Wow, that's awesome to have that connection from a child all the way to where you are now in adulthood with your parents. And whenever you go pick up a game, if it's multiplayer, you know that, hey, it's 9 times out of 10 I can play it with my parents and have that connection, because it's cool to play games with friends and all of that, because anybody can find friends to play games with. But when you're playing it with your parents and you have that connection, and you can remember, like you say, you remember back playing the Commodore and seeing your dad play that, and older systems and all that, it's like really, really cool. And that's something that warms my heart, because me, when it comes to, like you said, my music, playing it with my dad, I didn't do that until I was a teenager, whenever I was in high school, to really get into that thing. And then it was after I graduated that we really played a little bit more together. But it's cool to have that connection with your parents, because sometimes you go out there into this world and you do things and you're wondering, and back in my head, I'm always thinking, what are my parents thinking about? But to share what you're doing in life with your parents, it makes it, for me, when it comes to like picking up the guitar, bass, and like, so much more enjoyable. And just like your parents, my parents, they're very encouraging, because like my mom, she's the one that's behind me 110%. With everything that I'm doing right here. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go do a live stream. Hey, I'm gonna do this. She's like, okay, go ahead, go do it.
Yeah, that's something I don't know. It's weird that my parents are still into it. Like, I have like a little arcade 1-up machine over here of Miss Pac-Man, and it's got Galaga on it. And Mom and Dad used to play Galaga against each other when they were dating, like in the 70s. So now they just like duke it out on this machine whenever they come over to visit the Before I forget, quick question: like, if you and your dad are both into music, how have you not tried to get him on Guitar Hero, or have you, and he just wasn't into it? Because I feel like that would be a natural thing to try, as like Rock Band or Guitar Hero.
Yeah, I've tried it back in the day when it was big in like the PS2, Xbox 360 era. I tried to get him onto it, but he just wasn't into it at that time. I
gotcha.
And
I was like, man, that seems like a natural thing.
I mean, he played video games like if it came to like NASCAR or like PGA Tour and watching golf or NASCAR stuff, he was into those games, and we'd play those games together. But other games we didn't really play much together.
I gotcha.
Yeah, but that's cool. Now, it's cool to have that. It just puts a smile on my face, the connection you have right there.
Oh yeah. I'm very grateful. I'm very blessed in that way.
Yeah. So other things that I've been wondering over the time of knowing you, since I think I've known you like since 2017, 18, somewhere like that. Because I remember knowing you, and then knowing that you got onto the you were friends with Abaddon and everybody else, and I met all these group of people and all that. And then I remember, hey, I'm going to do a video because I'm shouting out some of the channels I like, and I did a video for you, which you actually put in your trailer years ago, and that was cool.
Yes. Yeah, I need to do a new trailer. Like, that's what scares me. It's like, I had all these cool people who were willing to like give me a quick clip to go in the trailer, and I know it needs updated because it's like 2 years old at this point, but I'm like, I don't want people to get mad at me. I don't think anyone would really get mad at me.
Nah. But that was cool. That was fun. That was one of the funnest things I've done on YouTube, because to actually have a video of mine put into somebody else's video, and then see all these other creators that you're watching their content on a daily basis be in that trailer with a guy that you've been on a podcast with, thanks to Abaddon for allowing me to be on there. But it's like amazing, and you did a really good job on that.
Thanks, man. And that's the thing, like, it's, for me, channel trailers are rough, right? Because obviously, like, it's like the point of a channel trailer is to sort of sell yourself or sell your channel in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird because, like, the reason I did it that way was, one, I thought it was a good way to be reflective of the brand of your player too, right? Where you take the spotlight off of yourself and put it on somebody else, let some other people get some play on your channel, which I thought was a nice thing to do. Mm-hmm. But then also, if you're showing up and you're watching my channel trailer, and I'm like, hey, guess how awesome I am? Why would you take my word for it? You have no social proof to speak of. I could be a complete jerk for all you know. So I was like, all right, I will simply outsource that social proof and see if, other people, just whatever they say is what I'll do. And some people said some just funny things. Like, no one said anything outright mean, but some people definitely had fun with it. And I was like, I'm totally going to leave that in because, that is an honest look at what people have to say about it.
I forgot which channel it was, or what person it was, but he made like a funny, like, who's this your player too, dude? And I'm like, I was like, yep. Because I like how you had the comedy in there.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was a way for me to have some fun with it. I need to do a new channel trailer, and maybe I can, just do that same thing again or something and see if people want to jump on.
Yeah, but that's one of the things where if anybody's watching, that's how I met him and all that. So I kind of wanted to share that little bit with you all, because oftentimes when we've talked before, it's been a lot of times we've been in podcasts together. So we get in there 5-10 minutes before the podcast, and okay, what are the topics? Okay, do we got everything that we need? Do we do our research? Do we know what we're talking about? And then we're sitting there talking for an hour, 2 hours. hours about these different gaming talk, which is fun. But I like reaching out to other people that you see on here. Not to get into not to get into some tangent, but to reach out to these people and kind of things that I've known they speak on and they would love to talk more about. But maybe it's not the focus of their channel. Like Studio Nintendo, he loves anime, he loves his wrestling, and he loves sharing that with people. But it's not the focus of his channel because he does the music there. So whenever he came on, we kind of shared that with people. That's why I was going into your parents and all that, just to let you know and everybody know.
Yeah, and like Nick is an excellent example. Like that dude is hardcore focused on music, but he has zero, reservations about also talk about like his love for wrestling or anime or anything in that vein as well. I think that's one of the things that kind of just sort of enriches who's already kind of a great dude. Right?
Yes.
I mean, like Nick, obviously a very talented musician, but then the fact that he's able to just speak passionately about these things that are also part of him, and he's not sort of uniformly just defined by music is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Same with you in wrestling.
Yeah, that's the thing that you find about people. You see these people on YouTube day in and day out, your favorite creators, and you think they're one thing. You think they're just this one thing. They're just video games, or they're just working on cars, or this girl is just beauty, or whatever it is. But then when you really get to come, like you're a creator yourself, and you actually become friends with these people that you don't expect to become friends with, but it organically happens, like me and you. And then you get to know these people outside of it, and you realize, wow, they're into some of the same things that you are, but you don't share it on YouTube maybe because that's not your focus or your niche. But then you realize, wow, we're into the Marvel and we're into this and that.
Yeah.
Because like whenever that game came out on the Switch, 29 Almost an Alliance, man, I knew you were into Marvel, but then when we were sitting there with me, you, Chips, Avedon, and all that, just talking about it, Jake, and just talking about the game, talking about the movies and all that, it was so fun. And that's things that I love sharing.
I am a big Marvel fan. That is true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I've asked you about your parents, something I've always wondered, and I know people you've heard the little snippets in your videos where you've talked about it, but getting into to gaming and all that, we've talked about how you want to help people, your parents and all that. I want to get into the other side thing that you used to do a lot on your channel, and you used to even share some of it through doing Sega games and all that, was your game collection. Where did you think, hey, I'm not just going to play games, I'm going to collect games?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I've always been a collector. I lost big chunks of my well, now you would call it a retro collection, but at the time, like when you're a kid and you have no way to make money, and there's like a garage sale, and I'm like, oh, I could sell my old Nintendo and make enough money to get a new Super Nintendo game. Like, I wasn't thinking far enough ahead. I should have been, but as it turns out, like 8 or 9 years old, I was like, I'll just sell off my Nintendo. Who needs it? Meanwhile, fast forward like a decade or two, and I'm like, ooh, I miss so many of the games that I probably should not have gotten rid of back then. As far as what got me into collecting, it's just something how to explain my love of collecting. It's weird because I did a video talking about how my collection habits were shifting a little bit. I am embracing digital a little bit more, but under very specific scenarios, right? Like there are certain games that if it's a AAA release and it's a game where the whole thing's not on the disc anyways, there's not a lot of incentive for me to collect a physical copy of that one because one, even if it technically has a disc, it's more of just a license, right? The whole game's not going to be on there. Like technologically speaking, you're going to have to download stuff to a hard drive anyways.
Yeah.
And two is if I really do beat myself up later on, or if I have some regret, like, oh, how come I don't have Grand Theft Auto Vice City in my collection? Well, there's like 100 million copies of Grand Theft Auto Vice City in the wild. That's never going to be a hard title to track down. But as far as my personal reason for collecting, it's a combination of factors. Like one, obviously, it's nice to be able to just walk over to a shelf and pull off a game that you want. Two is if I have friends that come over, like my buddy Kyle came over with his wife Liz a couple of weeks ago, and they were he swung by to give me something I got for my collection, which was the Last of Us 2 soundtrack that I'd ordered on vinyl from Mondo.
Nice.
It's ordered it for me. And when he came over, I sent them back with like 9 Switch games that I thought Liz would love. Because she was like, oh, I'm looking for some new Switch games. But I was like, behold, please come over here and take some Switch games. Because that's something else I like too, is like, it breaks my heart that there are so many people out there still, like, I understand gaming has matured a lot, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. That's inarguable. But there's still a lot of stigma, I think, associated with gaming, where people are like, oh, games are kids stuff, or you can be sort of looked down on if that's your hobby, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart that there are people out there who will never experience an amazing story or an amazing character-driven moment in a video game because they just don't quote play video games, quote unquote. To me, saying you don't play video games, or at least shutting off the entirety of it as a possibility, that would be like saying like, oh, I just don't watch movies, or I just don't listen to music. Like it's so weird to me.
Yeah,
like
it's like
so insane.
Yeah, because like if you're sitting there and you're not playing video games, then you say, like you said, you're not doing music or you're not watching something. Then what are you really doing? You got to go out there and enjoy things, because. Because to me, I always take, whenever I was little, when I got was play games, I'd see my brother playing games, and then I'd see some movies. Eventually, in the early 2000s, they started making a lot of movies on the PS2, like into games and all that. And I started like Tomb Raider and all these other things. And I'm like, wow, the movie I just saw, I'm playing the video game for it, and all this is. And I'm thinking, man, this is like an interactive version of playing that movie and being that character, but making the character do what you want to, kind of in the movie. With still the storyline there,
right?
And
yeah, it's just it's an amazing medium, and it's unique, I think, in the fact that as an art form, video games are one of those things that the story is. I mean, you could make the argument all art is technically interpretive, I guess, but video games are just so because like the entire outcome of a story could change dramatically depending on choices that you make.
Yeah.
Right? If you play Metal Gear Solid, you choose to save Meryl or not save Meryl, you're going to get a different ending. That's going to hit you in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's crushing to me. There are some people who are just like, oh yeah, I just don't play video games.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh, like play something like The Last of Us or another game that's just narrative heavy and makes you feel something. That's the thing that really gets me going. Like, and it's like that. What's it? That Miyamoto quote where he was talking about. I cannot remember it verbatim. I'm about to butcher this, but he basically said something.
What's up, not another game collector?
Aurora, hello. He said something like video games are like playgrounds, right? And wouldn't it be amazing to have a drawer full of playgrounds? That's kind of what I feel like when I look at my collection, right?
Yeah.
Some of the games that I have in there, they're not hard to find, but they may have a sentimental value for me. I've got some games that are objectively bad games, but I like them because they are my guilty pleasures. And it's kind of fun, too, because I've grown up with video games. So I arrange my shelves back here, generationally speaking, right? They're split into platforms. So you've got like PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. And then I do them alphabetically in reverse chronological order. So the most recent stuff is furthest to the left and up, so that I can find what I'm looking for quickly, the same way you would read a book. But then I like being able to look back to the entire lineage of the Xbox or the entire lineage of the PlayStation and know that with just a slight head turn, I can go from one of my latest and greatest PlayStation games, which is Demon's Souls, which I absolutely adore, and I'm glad that I beat it. But then I can also, in just like a couple of moves, jump all the way back and be like, I remember playing this game, Tenshu 2, when I was in high school, and trading memory cards with my friends in English class when we would draw out levels so we could like trade back and forth and try to outsmart each other being ninjas. That was awesome.
Yeah, so that's beautiful to hear about your collection. So getting into your collection as a whole and everything like that, is there like, trying to think of how to word this.
I'm very curious about what you're about to ask and why you're
it's well, when it comes to your collection, and like you talked about how you have this big collection, because whenever before you did the move, you were used to do the collection videos, where you'd show like what you had got that week, and all that and then you eventually moved it from weekly to monthly.
Well, now it's going to quarterly. I feel so bad. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, and all that. I loved when you shared that because sometimes like I'd get into those streams and sometimes they'd go from to be a collection to be just like a just chatting stream. What with games being there.
The chill streams pretty quickly, which is fine with me. Like, again, most of the time I stream, anybody who's watched me, you saw me earlier. Like, I'm not a performance streamer. If you think you're gonna stop by one of my streams, be like, oh yeah, time to no death run Mega Man 6. That's never gonna happen. But what I will do is talk your ear off for about 2 hours while I bumble my way through 1 or 2 levels. That's where I tend to show.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm the same kind of way, because sometimes there's games I get and you'll see me play a lot of it, and there's sometimes I get a game and then you see me pause for 5 minutes to talk to somebody because they threw a topic up in the chat, and I'm like, that's this kind of streamer that I am. But getting back to your collection, what in your collection is there like anything like that you look at that like is one of your favorite things? Like me, I look at my collection and obviously it's my childhood PS2 and my Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Is there anything like you look at and say, I'm glad that I kept this in my collection, I'm glad that I went out and got this? Is there like an item or two?
there are definitely items like that. Like a cursory glance over, I will tell you one of the first ones I always notice is I have the Big Daddy pewter figurine from the original release of BioShock on the
Oh,
360 from the collector's edition, and I love it for a couple of reasons. One, I just love that game. Like atmospherically speaking, it was incredible, and the story blew my mind at the time. I'd never seen something like that. But then also how I got it was hilariously random. I was driving home from work. This was after like right after I'd moved into my first apartment. Like I was out of college, and I was driving home from work, and I called my GameStop, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys have any new games come in? I'm just itching to play something new." They're like, "That BioShock game came in." I was like, "Oh yeah." They're like, "Yeah." I was like, you have an extra?" They're like, "We have one of the collector's editions. You want that?" I was like, "How much is it?" They're like, "It's like 60 instead of 50, or it might have been 70 instead of 60." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'll swing by. I'll grab it. I'll roll the dice on this." And it ended up being tremendous. And that's I don't know if it's an incredibly sought after one, but I know it's definitely accrued in value if you have one of the original collector's editions for BioShock. So that would be one of them. Um, if I think back historically, I'm glad to have Fusion Frenzy in my collection. It was an original Xbox game that is backward compatible in the modern age, and I had a bunch of friends who used to play that. We would get together and kind of just do couch play, I guess. What else am I glad that I held? The original Silent Hill, which I'm super glad I have in my collection, and I'm
nice.
glad that whenever I went to the Southeast Game Exchange a couple of years ago, with Die Hard, J-Lo, and everybody,
Yeah.
I did track down a Silent Hill 2 to replace the one that I no longer had, and I'm not sure what happened to that one. But Silent Hill titles mean a lot to me. Tenchu titles mean a lot to me. Um, I still have some original Game Boy cartridges that never left my collection from when I was like 6 years old, and one of them was Star Saver, which is not an exceptional game, but it is a game that I vividly remember going to the mall with my mom and like eating in the food court, and like back when GameStop was electronics boutique, it was like right off the food court, and she bought me that game, and I was very excited to have it. So yeah, there are definitely items in my collection I can go to and pick out that I'm like standouts for me, like from a nostalgia or sentimental standpoint, I guess you would say.
Yeah, cool, cool, cool. Sorry if y'all hear any background noise. My dad must be doing something. But and in your collection over the years, as you've done this, and then also transitioned into collecting while doing a YouTube channel, is there anything that you're currently like a certain system or like that? Like me, I got a Wii last year, so I'm collecting for GameCube and Wii for the most part, while still doing my PlayStation 2 stuff. Anything you're really collecting for now?
I will tell you singularly, the biggest collection that I have in terms of one platform is the Nintendo Switch. I don't know. There's just something amazing to me about it. I've slowed down a little bit this year near the end of 2020. I was way more into it through 17, 18, and 19. But then again, that was also pre-pandemic when I was going places a lot more. So having portability was a more important feature to me. But I've got over 200 Switch games at this point that
Wow.
and I just love it because like generally the games are complete on cart, right? There are exceptions, like if you get the Resident Evil trilogy of 4, 5, and 6, for example, Capcom. It's the same nonsense they pull with the Mega Man collection, where they're like, oh, you have to download the other half, which is just there for them to discourage the resale of like pre-owned games, which is completely ridiculous. There's no reason every Mega Man game could not have been on a Nintendo Switch cart.
Yeah.
But in terms of the platform I like collecting for most, I mean, it probably still is the Switch. I will just say lately, the platform I'm playing the most is the Xbox. The Series X really got me with that quick resume feature. I love that they've got 4 generations of backward compatibility.
Yeah. I still got to jump into next gen, but I still got to jump into next gen. If I can ask, how is it playing on the Series X compared to like the Xbox One or S or X, whichever one you had previously to that?
Once you get a taste of the speed of like a Series X or a PS5, it's real hard to go back. Like and that's the thing. Like if Microsoft, I think Quick Resume was like Microsoft's like one of their most devious features for the Series X, because it is so amazing to instantaneously go from a big beefy action game like Valhalla, jump into another big beefy action game, and then go right back in a matter of seconds without having to sit through like a loading screen. I mean, that's the kind of stuff where it's like, okay, you launch the game, and you wait, and you look at your phone, you screw around, you're like, oh, maybe I'll go grab some chips or something. Like, you're gonna have to wait a minute, but now you don't have to do it anymore. And that is a sneaky feature, because not only is it just nice and convenient and fast, and obviously it's appealing to you as for a generation that is very impatient, but then on top of that, it pushes you more towards digital stuff. And that really, like, I have a love-hate relationship with Microsoft right now because I love all the speed and convenience I'm getting from the Series X. I hate that it has managed to nudge me a little bit away from physical collecting.
I
Like, that
mean,
Resident Evil sale happened for the 25th anniversary. I bought literally every Resident Evil game because they were like 70% off. I was like, I can finally. All right, I'm going to jump back for a second to the GameCube era. I was so excited for the GameCube when Capcom in the early 2000s was like, "Oh, we're putting our stuff exclusively on the GameCube." At first, I was like, "Oh, this is incredible." They backpedaled on that real quick when they realized they couldn't push the volume. But at the time, they re-released like Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 0 was on there, 4 eventually came to it. So you could get like the entire Resident Evil collection up to that point on the GameCube pretty much. And I was so excited to have them because some of those games were like got kind of pricey. Like people are paying like 90, 100 bucks to get a copy of Resident Evil 2 on the GameCube back then. I have no idea what it is today. But now I actually feel like I'm in a place where I might be able to pull that off with the Xbox because they have 4 generations of backward compatibility. And because I grew up playing the Resident Evil series, it was very easy for me to be like, that's it. I want every Resident Evil game at my disposal. I want Code Veronica 0, 1, 2, 3's remake, 2 and 3's remakes, Resident Evil 4, obviously, 5 and 6. I'll take 5 and 6 too, I guess. Revelations 1 and 2.
Yeah. That's a mouthful right there when you say it.
It's a lot of Resident Evil.
Yeah. So
and I was sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just, because this conversation, I don't plan this out, so it just goes wherever it goes. Speaking of Resident Evil, do you enjoy the remakes that they've been making?
Oh, I adored the remakes, and it took me a long time to beat 2 because the first time whenever I played 2. My buddy Corey came over and he played as Leon and got very near the end, and I basically was just like hanging out with him while we played through it. And then I kind of like didn't play it for a long time. And then when 3 was going to come out, I was like, okay, now it's time for me to go back and beat 2, which I did do that. And then 3 came out, and it's weird because I thought it was so strange that people were like, oh, well, the 2 remake's not as good as 2. And I'm like, of course not. Like, the original 3 was not as good as Resident Evil 2, but I like them for very different reasons, right? 2 has a very slow, methodical pace about it. It's atmospherically heavy. It feels more like a horror game to me. 3 feels like Resident Evil Die Hard edition to me, right? It feels like a fast, actiony arcade game you can knock out in a couple of hours. Like, it feels like the kind of game you'd want to get a high score on. Like, and it's amazing to watch a good player go through Resident Evil 3. And so yes, love them both just for very different reasons.
Yeah, cool. Thank you to everybody that's been here in the chat. Diehard, Captain Kraken, Jake and everybody. If y'all got any questions, feel free to ask and all that. You're more than welcome to ask that while I ask some questions, things that I've pondered over these years, and kind of see where we even wade through these conversations where they go. Because one minute we're talking about collection, next minute we're talking about Resident Evil, Right. And speaking of one of the things that's like Resident Evil, but the other series you speak of, I saw your recent video where you actually talked about Silent Hill for a moment in that video.
Oh, yeah.
Because you showed the footage of it, and I'm like, oh, he's talking about it. I love that.
Silent Hill that was a pivotal moment for me, and that's why that's a series that's very near and dear to me. That's why, like, games that are especially near and dear to me like that, like, I'll make an effort to get the vinyl soundtrack for them, and I keep a very close eye on how those series develop over time. Silent Hill was important to me for a couple of reasons. One, the original Silent Hill, in tandem, I'll say, with Metal Gear Solid, was those two combined were the reason that I finally quit being a blatant Nintendo fanboy, and I finally leapt from the N64 to the PlayStation a couple years into its life cycle. And Silent Hill 2, now I'll tell you, this is shameful. I hate to admit this, but I'm going to admit it to you and anybody else who's watching. Prior to Silent Hill 2, I paid very little attention to video game cutscenes. There were exceptions, but generally speaking, if I played a game and there was a cutscene, I was just like, I wanted to skip it immediately because I feel like no game really was grabbing me. In the
so you're saying if it gave you a button prompt to skip this cutscene, you'd hit it?
If there was a way to skip, I skipped it because I was like, I'm not here to watch a movie. I'm here to play. Silent Hill 2 did a number on me though. That was very different because Silent Hill 2 tackled some incredibly adult themes. It was a very dark game.
Wow, this is something I never knew in all these years.
Yeah, like Silent Hill 2 was, and I had a couple of friends who were also really into it, so it was very easy for the three of us to kind of nerd out about it and talk about like the different characters that you run into in Silent Hill 2, and kind of build our own theories around the lore that surrounds the town and everything. And I was just completely floored that a game could talk about things like that. Because prior to that, I mean, it's not that no game ever tackled any adultish. Well, I'm sure other games had, but they weren't games that I'd ever played. Silent Hill 2 just happened to be that moment in time, like this serendipitous situation where I pop it in and it just clicked. I love the foggy derelict feel of this town. Akira Yamaoka's soundtrack for it is absolutely incredible. Yes, the controls aren't exceptional. You know, the old tank style controls are not ideal in the modern age, but you know,
Yeah.
it still has charms. And this is going to sound really. Have you played Silent Hill 2? I'm not going to spoil anything.
I've never really played the Silent Hill series. I mean, I messed around with it back on the PS1 when me and my brother had one, and then a little bit on the PS2. But I haven't really like beaten the game.
I gotcha. Well, I won't spoil anything if you intend to someday, but I will say that one of the things I'm doing on my channel is I am planning out. I think I've got about 2 months left to go. Every video for the entire year, which I've never done. That seemed to me like an insane proposition, but I think because I found a way that I can do it in a way that will not make me lose my sanity, I think I do have almost every video for this year planned out.
Wow.
And for the first time ever, I'm going to do a Valentine's Day video. And I'll say this now: Silent Hill 2 will make the cut for for my favorite video game love stories. Now, if anybody in the chat has played Silent Hill 2 and you know how this story ends, I would beg you, please don't spoil it for Chris.
Well,
it's a dark selection, but I have my justification.
Yeah, Captain Kraken says Silent Hill 2 is my brother's favorite game, and he's played everything. Wow.
It's a good pick. Like, if anyone ever asks you, like, if you ever want to like fake your love for Silent Hill, just say you love Silent Hill 2. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, I always think about that because I heard someone tell me once. I can't remember who it was or where I heard, but they were like, if you ever want to fake being like an indie music snob, just say you like Sonic Youth. You say you like Sonic Youth, people just leave you alone. They'll assume you know music if you just say you like Sonic Youth. I don't really know much about Sonic Youth, but hilariously, Team Silent left a lot of references to Sonic Youth in the Silent Hill games. I think there's like, what was it? I can't remember if it was in 1 or maybe 2, but there's like at Midwich Elementary, there's like a roster of names of kids that attend the school, and some of the names are actually the band members of Sonic Youth.
Wow.
Yeah, I always thought that was like an easy cheat. Like, if you're somebody who doesn't know horror games and someone's like, "Oh yeah, what's your favorite horror game?" Just tell them you like Silent Hill 2. It's an answer you can't go wrong.
Okay, so if I ever get asked that question in the future, I'm just gonna be like, Silent Hill, what did you?
Like, oh, it was Silent Hill 2. I'm also a big Sonic Youth fan.
Yeah, man. I mean, I might listen to a little bit of Sonic Youth while playing Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Just have a little fun. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool. It's something that I never knew, that you had that much connection with one game like that.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing that really got me about Silent Hill, it's not just that it tackles like these adult themes and has some really heavy things to consider. Like, there's some really horrific things. Like, if you're in Silent Hill as a character, you're there for a reason, and the reason's usually pretty bad.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a lot of sunshine and rainbows for the people in Silent Hill. I mean, depending on the ending you get, I guess. But it's the other thing that was really fascinating to me was the feel of being in the town, right? Whether it was in its regular form or like that other world form. I grew up in a very small town, and it was weird because after I moved up to Columbus to go to school, I would go back and visit it periodically, and it's kind of a spooky experience, especially as like the years roll on. Like, then after I graduated, like, my parents still lived there until last year they moved up here. So now my parents are like 10 minutes away, but before that they were like 3 hours away.
Yeah.
So I would, have to very carefully coordinate things like, ooh, let's hang out and see a movie, or I'm gonna drive home for Christmas, or you drive up for Thanksgiving and stuff like that. But as time goes on and you see certain parts of the place you grew up start to decay, or things that you vividly remember, and then it's just like this derelict husk, like a building that's not there anymore, it's a spooky kind of feeling. And I think that's why Silent Hill 2 continued to stick with me, because 3 came out after I'd moved up here, and I immediately was like, I have to get Silent Hill 3 and play. And I love Silent Hill 3 as well, but 2 is 2's always going to hit the hardest for me, and at least part of it was the fact that I came from like a small sleepy town like Silent Hill, so it was kind of dark and trippy going back.
Just looking at the chat real quick. Die Hard City still has Silent Hill 1, and then Captain Kraken asked after that, I haven't played the first one. How does it hold up? I don't remember playing the first one, but how does it hold up?
It's a lot harder to go to 1 than it is to 2. Like, even 2 could, by some, are considered to be hard to go. But if you can play 2 in its original form. Not the HD remastered collection, because they redid all the voice acting, because apparently the game was really poorly preserved, so that they had to redo the voices for it, which the original voices are quite bad, but like in a campy B movie, like charming way kind of bad.
Yeah.
Not like hard to sit through bad. 1 you can go back to. It's kind of funny. Like, Silent Hill's always been, I think, associated or synonymous with fog, because it's a foggy town, which made more sense in Silent Hill 2 and beyond. In the original Silent Hill, it felt less like, ooh, they're putting the fog in for atmosphere, and more like they're just trying to cover the technical limitations of the time where they didn't have a draw distance to draw beyond like 5 feet in front of the character, so everything was just really really claustrophobic in that way.
Yeah,
it's not impossible to get it back to by any stretch, but yeah, if you're gonna play one,
yeah,
if you're gonna go back,
that's
I would start.
Yeah, I don't have it already. Memory of that game. I know that I've probably played it in my life, but when you ask a question like that in the chat, I think about like the N64 and PS2, or like a lot of people say, if you can get past the controls of those games, you can go back to some of those games. But even as they were going from the 16-bit era into that 3D era, all that, some of the stuff is kind of hard on the eyes. It's kind of like you see where things have gone, where they were for, because it's like you get that 8-bit era, that 16-bit era, and it holds up so well, and then you get that one era right there, right before you get to the PS2, GameCube, Xbox, and it's just like some things look good, some things you see that the limitations are.
Yeah, like I would say, I can't remember which generation. I think NES, I think, was the 3rd generation. Then Super NES, I think, was 4th generation, and then we got 5th generation was PS1 and N6. I think that's right. And I would say that generation, whatever it is, probably aged the worst, because it was like the Wild West, right? I mean, like 3D graphics were something that was just kind of in its infancy, so everyone was kind of experimenting with it and seeing what could be done and pushing the boundaries. And you had some people who were or some developers and publishers that were so technically proficient with what they could do, that it was actually kind of astounding that they were able to create the things that they did at the time. Like, if you look back at the techniques that used to make Final Fantasy VII come to life, like, yeah, Final Fantasy VII looks kind of blocky and crude by today's standards, certainly compared against the remake. However, the fact that they were able to achieve like that level of visual storytelling in a medium that really people had only started to scratch the surface of, that is incredibly commendable.
Yeah, it is. Even whenever my favorite games are like Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Dexter on the PS2, and I go back to some of the platformers on like the N64 or PlayStation, like Banjo-Kazooie or Spyro, stuff like that, and you see how much of a jump they made from that to Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Dexter, and all that stuff. How much, and it's like, wow, just from a generation.
Yeah, and it's really weird to think about, like, and every time you get like so jazzed up, like, oh, these graphics are amazing, like look how beautiful, like Horizon Zero Dawn looks. It's weird to think that in just like 10-15 years that's gonna look super archaic. Like, you're gonna look back on the games that like blow your mind right now, and at some point you're gonna be like, ooh, that game looks bad, that looks ugly. Sometimes the reference point for a bad game, someone's gonna be like, oh, that looks like I'm playing Miles Morales Spider-Man, it looks so bad.
Yeah, I'm playing Last of Us 2, and I love the game, but then 10 years later, you're just like,
oh yeah. And I'll tell you what, recently I felt that way, because during that sale, I did pick up Code Veronica, because I didn't have Code Veronica in my collection. I don't think I might have a Dreamcast copy. I don't think I had an Xbox copy, and it was like $2.99. And I rewatched that opening scene. I think I actually tweeted it out now that I think about it. About how I thought that was like the raddest thing I'd ever seen, when you see like Claire like running down the hallway and like the chopper chase her with the Gatling gun, and she blows away this whole room full of dudes like a single shot to like an exploding barrel. Like, it's incredible. Like, and then you look at it today and you're like, ooh, that's hard to look at. That's like some 240p video right now, but
Yeah. So we've talked about a wide variety, not to cut you off, but we talked about a wide variety of things, from your parents to your collection to YouTube and all that jazz. When you look back on your experience so far, when you've changed from Geeks Podcast, which was a lot of different things, to niching it down on us, how do you feel about the couple years that you've been under the brand Your Player 2 out there on YouTube and social media? If you want to share that with anybody.
Yeah, no, I do. I felt exceptional about 2018. 2018, I felt pretty exceptional about it, because I felt like it was exciting and it was new and everything. 2019 was good for the first 6 months, and it took kind of a dive in the last 6 months of 2019. It was weird, because I felt like I shot myself in the foot, because I had a couple of videos that blew up and did like supernaturally well for the size of channel that I am, like 400,000 views, 500,000 views for like that Beat Saber video, and then that like a PlayStation Classic video I made. And then I started having like a bit of an identity crisis, which I'm still sorting through. I'm not gonna sit here and say.
Yeah, wasn't 2019 the year that you started out doing the Sega games every so often, and then you stopped?
Yeah, that was early 2019, and that's another problem that I have. Like, that's one of my weaknesses as a creator, is I have to be very careful, because kind of like the Magic the Gathering thing that I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I'll get really excited about an idea and I'll dive into it. and then my love for it will start to wane, right? And my problem is I'm like, hey everyone, we're gonna stream every day for 3 months, and I kind of capped it at 3 months because I knew at a certain point I was not gonna feel like doing an 8 a.m. stream every day when I tried that experiment in 2019.
Yeah.
But it made me more cognizant of one, my own weaknesses, and two, that I needed to be very careful about how that could impact other people or how I could kind of mess up people's expectations if I wasn't careful. So, and it's weird because normally I think of not a cool video idea, but normally I think of like a cool series idea, right?
Yes.
And then I have to kind of dial back that excitement a little bit because I don't want to get people excited about something and then not deliver. And since I can be really hard on myself anyways, you can imagine that's not a good place for me to be in, kind of like emotionally on the inside. But generally speaking, I feel really good about Your Player 2, even today. And I think the thing that I feel so good about is that even though I've had some missteps and I've had some successes, I've had some flat out failures,
Yes.
but I'm still making stuff. Like, I'm still in love with the process, right? Like, I will not bat an eye at all about the idea of jumping up at 6 a.m. in the morning and shooting B-roll for 3 hours on a Saturday. Like, I love it. I love seeing the crazy shots that I can get. I love taking something like video game collections and trying to make them look beautiful or enticing, or getting in on the details that a lot of people,
Man, there's a lot of things you're talking about right there that I've thought about before. It's kind of like you talking about B-roll, that right behind you, the red and the blue. I remember back when you had the old house and you had it back there in the corner.
I that back, it's like a throwback, but yeah.
Yeah, because I remember you used to talk about, oh yeah, I just get a couple handful of shirts or a couple of shirts, have them right there, and I just could do a couple that scenes and this, and then I
still do them back to back.
And then yeah, and you're just like, I go over here, go to my collection. I need some footage of this video game. I'll go over here and get this, and I was like, man, that's a cool process. You had it all down there, and I remember when you used to stream down there. I'm gonna let you get to it in just a second, but when you stream down there, you used to talk about how you used to have it all running through the wall and had it going all hooked up and everything going. I was like, man, I would love to go down in there and see what that was like.
It was a trippy setup, like at the old place. Now I'm in this new place, and it's a really good setup here. I've got a larger space to work with down here. So basically, the entire bottom floor is I leave the middle very open so that I've got a lot of room to maneuver around if I want to, like, change the setup for like lighting or where I position the camera and stuff like that. Yeah. Everything's around the perimeter, which, if you look at like interior design, generally people don't. It's not generally a good idea, visually speaking, to shove everything to the perimeter of the room. However, I'm also in a unique position where it's like I need floor space if I'm going to like set up a table and film an unboxing or something like that. So I need to be able to have space to spread out and put a bunch of equipment and stuff like that. So yeah, like the process is still largely the same. I still do stuff in batches. Like I'll brainstorm and I'll come up with like 30 or 40 ideas, and then I'll look at a whiteboard, and then I'll just put red check marks next to the ones that I like the most. Then I'll kind of draw arrows between the ones that I think could link to other content. Then I classify them as Jacob's seen the basement. He knows what it was.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's an awesome thing. Another thing that you mentioned when you're going through all that is the 3-month process that you did, where you made it your goal to get up every morning and do a live stream and chat with people every morning. What I never really, I mean, you've talked about it here and there, but what really lit a fire up under you to do that? And when you look back on that now, being that it was a while ago, how do you feel about it?
I don't regret it. It was interesting because one of the things that I guess the reason I did it was a fewfold. One is I just kind of wanted to see like what happens to your channel if you're just like, I'm not going to pre-produce and kill myself, do it, 12 hours of editing to make a 3-minute video. Like, what happens if you just go live straight? And what if I just talk for 3 months straight? And I'll say this. It was a lot of fun, and I really liked the people who were making the effort to come check out the content in the morning, because I was learning as much from other people as they were learning from the stuff that I was putting out there. But it was really exhausting, right? Because it's like, you can't get up in a leisurely way and kind of take your time in the morning, like, I'm gonna have some coffee, just chill out a little bit. No, it's like you get up, you're like, okay, I have to not look like a moron and look like, not like a disheveled hobo. And then in front of their lives.
Yeah, man, I would just kind of like I wouldn't mind doing it to a point, but at the same time I'd feel like dreading, like if I went to bed later one night or something like that, I'd be like, oh, I gotta get up in the morning, I gotta do the stream because people are expecting to see me, and then I get up in the morning, I go, I gotta rush, make sure my computer's on, make sure the mic's in the right place. Oh, I filmed this unboxing or did this and stuff's everywhere, I gotta clean this up so it looks good.
Yeah, and to Discard's question, were my numbers comparable to produced content? It was comparable for like average views, I guess, but like long term, they didn't seem to continue to garner views the way my pre-produced stuff did, and all that stuff I think is largely unpublished now. I might have left one or two, but I mean, it was a fun little experiment. But I think it's important to try new things because like I'll always want to make videos, and obviously anyone who's on the platform is making video in some form, right? Whether you're doing it live or whether you're making pre-produced stuff. But I also feel like it's really easy to get stuck in a rut, or worse. And this is something I didn't want to do, but maybe I should have found a middle ground there. Is like when the Beat Saber video took off, Smart Money says, "Oh well, if you've got that many views on a Beat Saber video, you should be making 12 more Beat Saber videos." But I didn't want to like stop making helpful stuff, right? And maybe they didn't have to be mutually exclusive. Maybe I could have peppered. Maybe I'll still make some more Beat Saber stuff someday. I don't know. But I feel like sometimes people get a ton of success on one video, and then they spend like way too much time just trying to recapture the success of that video, not because they like the content they're making necessarily, but because they really like the numbers they get or the comments or that feeling of validation, from having a video that went viral or close to it, perhaps. So I think it's important to be consistent in your output and your work ethic, but I think it's also important to kind of mix it up and explore new things too, try new stuff. Like the M1 MacBook video that I put out earlier. I tried, okay, what happens if I go into the editing room where I do a behind the scenes discussion right after the video is done? There's nothing stopping me from doing that. Why not roll the dice and see if people respond to it? Plus I just kind of like that because it was a fun, more laid back way for me to just kind of talk about something instead of like,
yeah, it's like me. I saw the footage. It's like me. I haven't done a reaction video in months, and yesterday I just out of the hair saw the stuff for a series I've never played, being the Mass Effect series, and I've always heard everybody for Studio Nintendo J can tell me it's such a good series. Yeah, one, the controls and some of the things that aren't good, but if you play 2 and 3, you're gonna love the series and everything like that. And I knew that coming into this year, this is one of the games that I was hyped for it. And then yesterday, they get all the news on Twitter, and I see that, and I see the trailer, and I'm thinking, I'll just wait till I get home. And the whole day it's just going through my head, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come home, hit the record button, and just do a live reaction of it. So I just went ahead, got right here, did my reaction to it, and out of nowhere, people enjoyed that, and that was just off the cuff a video, just that I just kind of like, I guess like an old Western, shot from the hip, didn't know what I was doing, and just did it.
Yeah. That's honestly how I felt earlier doing that Demon Souls stream. I hadn't streamed. I kept getting like caught up. Well, one, like I mentioned at the beginning of that stream, like I had problems just streaming the PS5 period, but just like anxiety and technical problems aside, I was still kind of like, okay, I've got everything in place to do it. And I was like, I'm just going to go for it. I'll just go ahead and say like, hey, it's just a quick test stream. Plus I need to make sure my equipment worked anyways to hang out with you tonight. So I was like, there's no better time than now. So I just, figured I would go for it. So I think that is important.
Yeah, because sometimes, because I mean, it's cool talking about the things, because like that 3-month process was a bunch of live streams. I do a bunch of live streams, and sometimes you just got to go with your gut and just put something out there, because I've seen some creators, I'm not going to name any names, but some creators get in a rut of what they're doing, saying they enjoy what they're doing, but yet you can hear in their voice that they want to do something else, but they're too afraid to take that chance or try it, because what they're doing is doing well for them, or they're so comfortable in that zone. Right. But in life, you never know risk or reward unless you go take that risk.
Right. And that's why, like, I know I sound like a broken record whenever I talk about this stuff in my own videos, but that's one of the reasons I keep telling people to not worry so much about the numbers or the end goal. Like, I'm not saying don't have goals. I'm not saying, just be apathetic or you should just make stuff and not care whether or not it gets traction. I'm not preaching apathy here. I'm just saying that if your only motivator for the content you're making is how well it performs or the positive judgment or reinforcement you get from other people, and instead of just loving what you do, that's a real hard spot to be in. Because if you hate editing, if you hate filming, and you're only doing it because you're like, oh, I want to get 1,000 likes, or I want to get 100,000 subs, or I want that silver play button, then it starts to feel like a job again, and a fairly thankless job sometimes, especially if you're trying to get traction and everything. So I would much rather be happy and have a smaller subscriber base or have a smaller amount of success than be miserable and only chase the things that, are going to perform in an outstanding way.
Yeah, I know exactly how that is, because like if you look at my channel just for reference, if you look at my channel, I've done a lot of things: music, wrestling, live streams, a bunch of edited videos. I was doing Let's Plays for a long time because I was really into Dash and Jacksepticeye and all that, and I thought, hey, I could do something like that. And over the time, the more that I've done this, the more that I talk to people like you or Avidon or anybody in the chat, I've come to find out that my strength isn't just editing a video, isn't me just, hey, trying to talk about the latest, greatest game or guitar or something like that. It's the live stream. So that's where I've kind of just put the videos to the side. And if I want to do a video and it's there, it's there. But I'm focusing just right now on this podcast and pretty much the live streams going there, because that's where I've kind of over time just took a risk, and I'm like, I'm just going to take a risk. I'm finally not just going to stop doing all these updates, all these things, you know. I just moved. Let's just go live for several months and just have fun. If the video comes, it comes.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think that's like your superpower, man. Like, you have an incredible ability to maintain enthusiasm like nobody's business. Like, you are consistently excited. I mean, you're clearly very personable, but I mean, I think that's one of the underrated things, is just the ability to just kind of stay excited about the process, but then also the fact that you recognize that strength about yourself and kind of leaned into it, I think is really smart. I think there's this natural temptation for people to, and not even just when it comes to like YouTube or whatever, it could be any area of life, where people are like, oh, I'm really bad at this one thing, so I should focus on getting good at that because I'm bad in this one area of my life. I think it's a much better strategy to lean into something you're already great at, right? Like, if you're amazing, you know, having an on-screen presence for a live stream like you are, I think it makes way more sense to be like, okay, I'm going to lean into that and do more of it, than to say, ooh, you know what, I'm not a very good, like, we'll say like a programmer, right? Let's say like maybe you're like a 5 when it comes to like writing C++ code, and you're like, ooh, even if you try your absolute hardest, you will probably only ever be a 7 or an 8, maybe. But if you're already a 9 with your on-screen presence and getting people excited, and you lean hard into it, I mean, like, sky's the limit for you. Like, I don't know. I always thought, I never understood that. Like, oh, you should work on your weaknesses. Like, I don't want to work on my weaknesses. I want to play to my strengths.
Yeah. When I come to that work on my weaknesses thing, as I've gotten older, I like see them there, and like there's been times where I've shied away from them, but more as I get older and I'm about to be 30 and all that, I just kind of see my weaknesses there, and I'm like, yeah, but yeah. But and also thank you for the kind words. But yeah. But back to what I was saying, I've been over time, I've just kind of looked at my weaknesses, like, you know what? When it comes time to tackle that, I'm going to tackle that. Instead of shying away from it, I'm going to tackle it when it comes time to do it. But for right now, I'm going to focus on what people are enjoying, what I'm enjoying, and what is positive for both parties, you know, kind of thing. And that's where I'm kind of going with content, with just whether I'm doing something silly on TikTok or Instagram or anything. I'm just kind of focusing in on what I'm enjoying and having fun with it and seeing where it goes.
It's good, man. And if you're having a blast, like, I don't know, it's, you never want to get too high, you never want to get too low, right? You never want to be so excited about like people's cheers, but you never want to also just completely decimate yourself because somebody thumbs down one of your videos, right?
Yeah.
And I think maintaining that excitement and just, again, loving the process and having fun with it, super underrated.
Yeah, I used to be so down. Like when you mentioned that thumbs down, I used to be so down about when I used to do videos back in the day when I was just doing Let's Plays, and I'd see thumb down on a video or this, I'd be like, well, what can I do to improve? And I'd try to find anything to improve on, and then I'd do the next video, and years later I look at it, I'm like, I never really improved on anything. What was I focusing on there? You know, I never really could find the problem. But then at the same time, as I'm older now, I look at that, I'm like, you know, it's still interaction. They took the time to put that there. So yeah, improve what you're doing, maybe do better, maybe change the editing style, maybe talk a little bit slower or a little bit more fluent, whatever you need to do in that video. But I've also looked at it as, hey, they took the time to interact, so that's interaction for you. So that is a positive in some way, you know, let you know something. But now getting to the chat, Captain Kraken said, I've always been inspired by Josh's ability to keep plugging away at something he loves, regardless of not getting the amount of views he deserves. I have been off and on through the years he has. Always remained motivated.
Well, first off, that's a very nice thing to say. Thank you. Second of all, I will say, I don't know how many views I deserve, but, you know, I figure on a long enough timeline, you know, maybe I'll get some more, maybe I won't, but I will still have fun doing it, Kraken. And the other thing, in like always remaining motivated, that's a half truth. Yes, most of the time I am very motivated just because I love the process and I like filming and editing and doing all that stuff. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that there have been off days or down days, and I think that's normal for, like, you can get writer's block. you can make a video and find out that it wasn't very good by your standards, and there were definitely days where I've not been very motivated. But the way I think the thing that has kept me long term motivated, like at scale, like overall, the reason I'm able to keep plugging away is because any progress is progress, right? Like even if the only thing I do in any given day is think for 5 minutes about a new video idea, I've pushed the ball down the field a little bit further than I would have otherwise if I just sort of let myself be consumed by like, despair or demotivation or just get completely stuck in my own head as I'm wont to do. So I think that's a healthy perspective to maintain, right? Like you can get like when it comes to video production or YouTube or again any area of life, I think, you can always get smarter. You can always learn more things, but nothing happens unless you actually stay in motion, right? That's why, I struggle a lot with relaxing because I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people who it's like if I have time off, if I spend it playing video games or relaxing, I'm like, oh, I should have been more productive. And then if I'm more productive, I'm like, oh, I should have stopped and smelled the roses or something. But, I think the biggest detriment a lot of creators have is like they're just not patient enough, right? A lot of people think like they're going to jump on YouTube and be like, oh, I'm going to become a YouTube star. Like, buddy, I got some bad news for you. You have a long, slow, arduous grind ahead of you. If the only thing that's going to make you happy about this process is, that silver play button or whatever, like it's, are there people that go viral? Yeah, but they're the exception, not the rule. And not every video that goes viral means that the creator who got that virality is prepared to deal with or able to manage their brand or their channel in a way that's going to let them be successful long term. It's like Star Wars kid, right? That video has like hundreds of millions of views, and the people that uploaded it tried to pivot the channel, be like, oh, make sure you go check out my music channel, and it's like crickets over there. I mean, just because you have something blow up doesn't mean that you're going to be in a great position. And I guess the way I see it is, I don't want to really get the views that like massive scale views until I think I'm ready for it. And I don't know that I am. I think that, I think I'd rather just wait it out.
I totally understandable. So we've been here a little bit over an hour, so I kind of want to start to wrap things up. But I just wanted to ask if anybody's got any questions in the chat, feel free to ask. But also, I like asking the creators towards the end. Do you got any questions you've ever wanted to ask me as a creator, as a person?
I would love to know exactly what factors led to you being the kind of positive person that you are. Is this something that you just always naturally had, or is this something that you kind of made a conscious effort to cultivate over time? Because that's not lip service. Like you have a supernatural ability to stay positive and encouraging for just about everybody, from friends you've known for a while to complete strangers I've seen you interact with on live streams. Like, tell me about it.
Yeah. So how do I always stay positive? That's a question that I've never really had anybody really like put it to me that way. But I guess it's just the way that I was brought up with my parents. They always told me to be nice to other people, no matter like they always like no matter religion, race, this, that, the other thing, and not just my mom most importantly, but my great grandfather, I guess, because I called him Papa. And he lived to be 94 years old, and he had always been respectful to anybody and everybody, because he always had a saying that whenever anything went wrong in life, anything bad happened, like, hey, your car broke down, or hey, you had a bad day at work, or I had a bad day in school, he'd always look at me or anybody and say, hey, the last perfect person we put on a cross. So it shows the kind of people that we are. You can get up from this and you can do better. And he'd always do that through whatever life threw his way, back when he was in the Army Corps of Engineers or anything like that. And that's something that's always stuck with me. And my mom always tells me, hey, remember that saying, and I've always kept that in the back of my mind whenever I go live or do anything. I'm looking at, if I'm going to fail, I'm gonna fail. But hey, at the end of the day, we're human beings. We make mistakes. We can just look at it, fix it, and move on from it. So I try to put positivity out there, because I always see all this negativity, or I always see people like doing this or that, and I'm like, I don't want to be that negative person out there on Twitter or YouTube or anything like that. I mean, I might get in a conversation and might say, hey, my piece in this conversation from time to time, but I'm not going to be that negative person. I want to be happy-go-lucky. Not saying that I'm always happy-go-lucky, because you can come in a stream sometimes and I'm starting to get tired and I'm not happy-go-lucky me like I was 2 hours ago in the beginning of the stream or something like that. Or some days I have a bad day at work and I go and I still do make the effort to go live, and I'm not 110, but I'm still being me, because I know that being out there entertaining people is something that I really, really enjoy because yes, I enjoy. It's like my job. I'm not gonna say what store I work at, but I work at a grocery store, and I help customers. I stock shelves and all that, and it's just making somebody's day. Whether it be a customer or be somebody in a live stream, it be somebody in Discord, wherever it is in the world, it makes me feel better as a human being, and it helps me get through the day to the next day.
I gotcha. And that's beautiful, man. I'm glad that you had just like, it sounds like you were surrounded by just a really positive upbringing that sort of helped reinforce that. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad that you were able to have that with your grandfather.
Yeah. Any other questions you've ever wondered? Because I just like to put that out to creators, because sometimes we get in these chats and I make it all about that creator, you know. But then at the end of the thing, they're like, oh, I want to ask you this, that, the other thing, you know. Because like me and the game leaders, we spent like 30 minutes after it just still talking.
Right. I would be curious about this. So how long have you been doing YouTube at this point? It's been what, 3-4 years or longer? Am I incorrect?
I've talked about my journey before, but I've never really, the way that I'm thinking in my head right now, because it always comes to me different. I started my YouTube channel in 2012. And it was a year after I graduated high school, and I didn't have a job at the time because I had long hair in high school and didn't have a job at the time, you know. And then I did get a seasonal job at a Halloween store, but that was only 3 months, September, October, and then November, break everything down, and they go back, and then the people that had the store go back to Las Vegas. But I didn't really have a lot of things, but I'd hung out with my friends that I had in high school. Some of them were in the same grade I was, some of them were the year behind, but I'd always go to my buddy's house and hang out, you know. And I started a YouTube channel, you know, because I saw him just doing little things off his iPod, little videos talking about wrestling, and he's like, and I'm like, I'm a wrestling fan. He says, well, you also play music. Why don't you put that on YouTube? You know, you don't have to do all this editing and stuff like that. I see thousands of people just uploading videos, vlogs of them just talking. So he encouraged me to do that, play my guitar, and then eventually we started talking on Skype and all that, and then eventually rolled into adding in video games with it. And then I saw video games, and I'm like, I can use a video game but still talk about my wrestling while playing that video, still talk about my music while playing that video game. And you know, because I see Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, Dashy, they're having all this fun stuff talking about the video game they're playing, but sometimes you see the conversation go elsewhere, and it's because they're making a joke or they're having fun, or it's whoever's in the chat with them. And I'm like, and it did that, and I was all over the place until like the last couple of years when I started meeting people like you and the Game Looters and Jakin and Abaddon, Studio Nintendo, and that group of people, and Rax the Great and all that, where I kind of focused in on, hey, what's best for me? Because I see y'all had such focus on what y'all were doing that I had to focus on what was good for me. I like creating videos every once in a while, but it's the live streams, and that's why over the years the videos have done kind of slowed down, even though I say I'm not going to do a video, and I somehow pop a video out there every once in a while, and I've more or less focused on, hey, let's go live at least 2 weeks on 2 times a week on YouTube, at least 1 time on Twitch every week. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't because of life, but that's kind of my thing. You know, I never expected to be doing this, but it's something that whenever I'm not at the job, I'm not playing with parents, or I'm not playing music, it's kind of like always there. And because of not only the pandemic, but just because of life and all that, and a lot of people that I knew just kind of gradually going out doing their jobs and not really seeing a lot of people you go to high school with, I gravitated to doing YouTube because I got to meet a lot of people that I could sit there and say, hey, I'm on my PlayStation, my Xbox, and I see them on, and they're willing to play for 2, 3, 4 hours, play Sea of Thieves or Minecraft or Rocket League with me, and create that bond and talk about our day and video games and movies and Power Rangers and all that, and that's what's cool.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So let me ask this then. What would you say, based on your experience of doing YouTube for as long as you have, what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions about gaming YouTubers?
The biggest misconceptions is the biggest thing that people look at it whenever they look at us and they see the word game. They think if you hear any excess noise, I apologize, but that that you just play games, that all you're doing is just playing a game. You're just getting it. You have a Nintendo, you have an Xbox, you have a Switch, you have all those systems. Is that all you're putting your money to? Do you not see I live in a house? Do you not see I have a roof over my head? You know, they look at people, they look at us and they think that's where all our time's going. But then you realize that game may help me throughout the work week because I come home and I play that game and it helps me get the stress and off my shoulders, or hey, I'm playing that game and I'm connecting with friends because it's a multiplayer game. It's all these different things that they think.
And there are way worse ways you could spend your time.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not one of the people out there doing something illegal or bad, you know. So hey, I'm better here than there, you know.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest misconceptions is that the general people see the word game and they think that's all that you do, and then they don't realize to set up the live stream or to make that video, to, you know, it may have that game in there for a couple clips, but you don't know all the stuff that goes into it, you know, and how rewarding it is playing that game, beating that game, and then maybe doing a review or an impressions video. I know I'm saying a longer answer than I thought, but that's a misconception.
I spent a lot of time talking. You should be talking a little bit.
Yeah, you know, because it's just like I just don't. I see people because I see people and they say, oh well, it's just gaming YouTube. All they do is this, and it's like it's more to it than that. It's like a lot of us gaming YouTubers, like I said over years, like with me and Student Nintendo or me and Avidon, realize that we don't just play games. We actually enjoy music. We, you know, and all that. We enjoy wrestling. We enjoy the Marvel universe, DC, whatever it is, you know, and we're enjoying a lot of different things of life, but gaming is what brought us together. But we got to meet all these other people that have vastly different lives and all that, but it's like, you know, it's just a misconception that a lot of people get when they see that word game and they think that's all that it is.
Dude, it's interesting you bring that up because, like, one of the things that I started doing too was, like, I started wearing less gaming shirts just in general on the channel. But it's not because I'm ashamed, like, oh, I can't wear my Mega Man shirt. What if somebody says something? It's not that. It's just like I feel what you're saying because I feel like it's really easy to almost feel like stereotyped, right, as a gamer, or just feel like you have to fit a particular mold. Like there's just like this expectation. I'm like, no, like people are multidimensional, right? I mean, you don't just because you happen to be really passionate about one subject doesn't just automatically mean you're excluding like every other thing that you might be, you know, that you might enjoy, or there's not more to you as a person.
Yeah. Because I'll get to that because even outside of YouTube and all that, when people see the gaming YouTuber thing, like you in your general life, like I said, how people in high school, I'll see them later and they say, "What are you doing?" And I say, "Well, I work here and I do this and I do that, and also, hey, I play games on YouTube on the internet." And they're like, "Oh, games? What? Why do you want to do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
That's a tough spot to be in. Or I'm trying to think if there's something else that I can ask you. What is one piece of advice that you would give me? Having known me as long as you have, is there any advice you would give me as a creator?
Any advice I could give you as a creator?
Absolutely. I'll take all I can get. I can put you on the spot here. Okay.
I mean, you got levels that are way above you with your video editing, the way that you talk on the camera and all that. You know, I mean, I look at your one
thing I can do better.
If I had to think of one thing that you could do better, it's just. It's maybe just a little bit, if not to be critical of you or anything like that, but whenever you hit that live button, is bring a little bit more of your personality out there when you hit that. You know, not say you got to be like me, be on 100, you know, hitting all these buttons right here and dancing around like a monkey like I do sometimes, but just a little bit more of your personality out there, you know, because I see you talk about these games and you laugh and joke and stuff like that, but I want to see a little bit more of you, just you.
I should bring more.
You know, because sometimes people can come by and I see, like being a stream, you get a fluctuate. This is just me being me. You got to fluctuate people, but then throughout the stream, it kind of like the people that are diehard are still there, but then some of them kind of float out. And I'm just like, he just needs to have that little more pop of his personality and more focus on a little bit more on him. And even though the game's there, but a little bit more him like it is in the videos.
Gotcha. I'll admit that, and I think part of it too is momentum, right? Plus, I do better when I'm talking to somebody else. That's why I want to start a series similar to this on my channel, which will probably happen on Saturdays. Which, again, I hope you will come join me. Is that the truth?
Anytime.
Can I force you to commit on a live format? No, that's a terrible thing.
Anytime.
I wouldn't have said that if I didn't already know. But let me ask one more question. What is a question that I have not asked you that you feel that I should have asked?
Question that. Well, I've never been asked that in my life.
It's a dirty interview question that I use when I, you know, like if you have to interview someone, ask them what they think you should ask them. It's really just a
I mean, I don't know. I'm just like, you see me right here. I'm blank.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, do this all day, Chris. It's fine. No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah.
so much for having me on, though.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
So
welcome. So, just before we get out of here and all that, I want you to, like, if you want to, tell everybody about your channel, and if you want to, kind of like I did some of the other creators, if you want to tell anybody, maybe you don't have to spoil all the beans or everything like that, but kind of tell people maybe what they could look forward to over the next few months on your channel, or maybe something that you have coming up.
For sure. So you can check out my channel. It's Your Player 2 on Twitter. I am literally It's Your Player 2 on Twitter. And then it's just youtube.com/YourPlayer2 if you want to check it out. But yeah, effectively, I talk about video games. You know, kind of do that stuff on Thursdays, Tuesdays when I usually put out helpful content. And also, just to be clear, I do not have all of the answers, nor would I ever pretend to have all of the answers. If that were the case, I'd have a bajillion subscribers and I have my own, you know, gold or what's the big one? It's diamond, isn't it? Diamond play button.
Yeah, I think that's
I think it's diamond. Yeah. So, no, I do not have some otherworldly level of success, but what I can do is tell you about the things that I've learned, not just for myself, from people like Chris, or talking with other amazing creators in the gaming community on YouTube, and just sort of share those experiences, right? If I find tactics that work well for me, I put them out there. If I find stuff that did not go great, I will talk about that as well. But if that sounds like something you would be into, please do come by and check out the channel. Yeah, and as far as the stuff that's coming down the pike, I will be doing a series on starting a gaming channel, which is something somebody asked me about on Twitter. I had a couple people who were like, you should do a series where you just talk about how to start a gaming channel from scratch. So I started mapping that out. That's going to happen. I think the way it's going to work moving forward, and I'm going to be, this is a soft commitment here because I'm still working out the details, but generally speaking, what I'm aspiring to in 2021 and beyond is I want to start doing, again, 4 to 6 episode series once a quarter. Right, so like right at the beginning, and the first one I'm going to try to have out, it would be the beginning of April, because I probably need a quarter of planning as I kind of get all the technical details squared away. But if you have any serious recommendations, or if there's something that you think you know, that you need help with, or if there's something you think I could do better as a creator, please come and tell me, and you know, check it out.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. But once again, thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to have you here on my channel. You know, definitely, I will be swinging by your channel whenever you want me. You know, just pencil me in for something and all that. And thank you to everybody that came by the chat. Big Evil, Dane, Discard, Not Another Game Collector, Kraken, everybody else that came by. Thank you, Jake and everybody. Really a pleasure to have you all here. And here's just have a little off the cuff conversation, because I get these things going, but I never sit there and be like, somebody's got a board in the background, hey, I gotta ask these 10 questions, or I gotta ask this and this. I kind of let the conversation go where it wants to. If I hear something that's interesting to me, or I know might be interesting to you, all the viewers, that's where the conversation goes, from collecting to games to everything. But thank you for being here, Josh. We're gonna go on and get out here so I can go get some food and all that. But thank y'all. Thank y'all for being here and all that, and I'll see you all in the next video and or live stream. Remember to always stay awesome, and in 2021, as I'm trying to put out there, grow your knowledge and your friendships, because after the year we had last year, just grow your knowledge in any aspect of life, and also if you have any friends or anybody in life, whether it be even family, grow your friendships. You know, that's all I can say. I'll have a good one.
We off the air?